Hi everyone, welcome to another edition of Áines Tales from the Hearth of a Sunday. It's actually Sunday, so I'll be trying to upload this to you as soon as I get it done. So I hope you are all keeping well and you're all doing good wherever you are. So I did a poll on my stories. I won't go into too much waffle because we'll keep that for the weekend waffle. I do forget how quickly the stories go off my page. But I did a poll, and for the few that did get to vote on it, people voted for a story. So I thought no harm, give me a chance to come up with a few more poems. So I'm going to do The Night of the Big Wind. I don't know, I just thought that just felt right to do that one. Now I wrote this back in 2021, but I've since found out a few more things about it. So I might add in one or two things at the end. But I also found out that it's the same date as Nollaig na Mán, which has had a resurgence in the last few years. So yeah, after the poor ladies whining and dining and having fun, can you imagine having such a big catastrophe happen that night? So yeah, I won't go into too much detail about it, but it's all in the story. So yeah, here we go. The Night of the Big Wind. The Night of the Big Wind. It is the 8th of December 2021 and we are in the midst of Storm Barra in Ireland. There are high winds, heavy rain and floods, particularly in the south and the west of the country. No lives lost so far, thankfully, but thousands are without electricity and damage to property and farms. I was preparing the cottage earlier today for guests due to arrive on Friday. With one eye on the stormy weather out the half door, I got to thinking about how safe and secure I felt in this small stone building with no foundations and a roof of straw and scraw above me. I marvelled yet again at how strong and durable these old vernacular buildings are to stand the test of time in all weathers. But it seems that wasn't always the case. There is a story that I've learned ever since I moved to this area in around 2000 about the Night of the Big Wind. It seems there was an even older building called Mayo House, early 1800s, that originally stood behind where we are now, higher up from where the cottage stands today. It is believed that around 1839, this former building was destroyed in a very bad storm that became known as the Night of the Big Wind. We will never know exactly what happened, whether it was a gable or roof or practically the whole cottage or house that was blown away. But within the same year, 1839, a new house was built further down the hill in a more sheltered area. It has fascinated me since, and I've tried to find out as much as I can about it. Unfortunately, there are no written facts, but there is a strong oral history from locals whose parents or grandparents spoke of it to me and have validated it. The family that lived in the original Mayo House in the early part of the 20th century were called Rowntree. John McMahon then took over the tenancy of the original Mayo farmstead around 1830, and together with his presumed nephew William and his younger brother John, they rebuilt the cottage that is standing today. William McMahon eventually took over the farmstead and raised his family in Trohanny. It must have been a major storm to cause such destruction, and I can only imagine the chaos and the panic that would have ensued that night, and the stories that were told afterwards for generations to come. When myself and Joe restored the cottage between 2000 and 2005, we used stone hand-picked by us from the surrounding fields. Most of those stones we found in the field north of the cottage, which we later realised were probably remnants of the original building. At least two of these were spud stones, which are shaped stones with a hole in them to hold the side of an iron gate, and we took those and they are now still in use in Trohanny Cottage for gates. I look out the tiny framed back window of the cottage now, and I'm looking out at exactly the spot where this older building would have been sat. Though I would love to go back in time for a moment to see what the original building looked like. In a strange way, I am grateful for that storm, as it drove John and William to build a stronger, safer and more durable building that is still standing strong almost 200 years later. Without realising it, you could say we have built part of the original Mayo House inside the later version, now known as Trohanny Cottage. What a beautiful full circle. Thanks for listening, guys. Hopefully that wasn't too long and you didn't get bored halfway through. But I'd love to hear of other people's, what you guys know of that night of the big wind. I find it fascinating. The fact that there was no written history of it, only oral stories that people, I don't know, maybe there is some written history somewhere, but that's what I had learned, that there wasn't, and it was literally only stories passed down. But can you imagine how, just the chaos and how scary that would have been, like to have a storm that major. It was considered, I think, the worst storm ever in Ireland, possibly still to this day. And it destroyed so many buildings around the country. I know some areas were hit worse than others, but it does make perfect sense between the oral history and between knowing the history of here, that is what happened. That on the night of the great wind, big wind, people call it different things, that most of or part of the original cottage, original house, homestead was destroyed. Now I have learned since that, reading just a few different things on it and what I could, that communities came together and rebuilt or restored or helped to put together these houses that had been demolished or had been, maybe partly ruined. And it was whole communities that got together, and that's how they were able to build these buildings back up so quickly. It wouldn't have been like, nowadays if you were trying to restore a house, it would take years. But I think back then it was that bit different in that there was always a community around, and you would have had a local thatcher, a local stonemason, and you would have people that would have been good at certain jobs that would have come in and probably helped everyone in the area, and everyone would have helped everyone. A nice idea when you think of it, and maybe something we're lacking these days is that community spirit and that local help. But anyway, just something to think about, and I'd love to hear if any of you guys know of any stories of that night of the big wind. Had you heard from parents, grandparents, relatives about it? Is it something you knew about? Or like myself, were you completely unwise to it until, for me, it's because of the cottage that I became interested in finding out, and through that I found out about it. But yeah, let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you if you knew about it, and if you enjoyed the story. And as ever, take care. I look forward to seeing you guys next week for Áines Tales from the Hearth. Probably with a poem this time, we'll see. But in the meantime, have a lovely rest of your weekend, and I'll see you guys all next week. Slán.